Welcome back. Fortress HQ and a warehouse block at the naval base are to be handed over to the Gibraltar government as part of a new lands transfer deal which will take place early next year. This was announced by the Chief Minister together with Defence Secretary Michael Fallon at No. 6 Convent Place. They also reaffirmed the joint commitment to transfer the Defence Fire and Rescue Services to the government. Mr Fallon also confirmed that there are no job losses envisaged in Gibraltar as part of the UK's defence review and expressed the MOD's long-term commitment to the ROC. Legislation will be introduced in the next weeks to place the Royal Gibraltar Regiment on the same footing as other British Army regiments.
This meeting was the result of months of negotiations between the Gibraltar government and the Ministry of Defence, with the Chief Minister taking a lead role in discussing a number of important issues with UK ministers. In the light of developing world events, Fabian Picardo thanked the Defence Secretary for taking the time out of his busy schedule to come to Gibraltar and make this joint announcement. A new lands agreement will be signed in early 2015. This will include a block of warehousing at the naval base, which will be transferred in the next 12 months. It will also include a commitment for the transfer of the site at Roger Bay, previously known as Fortress HQ, sometime in 2017. The government of Gibraltar will not be expected to re-provide these MOD facilities.
There is more land coming back to the government of Gibraltar, and we are agreeing to work together to ensure that defence assets that are used for the purposes of the commercial aspects of Gibraltar are a cost which are shared between the government of Gibraltar and the government of the United Kingdom.
There's no estimate for the monetary value for these sites yet, but they are expected to be used for industrial rather than residential purposes, and so they are expected to have a beneficial impact on the economy. Mr Fallon said the MOD is committed to Gibraltar because of its strategic value, and therefore no job cuts are expected as a result of the UK's defence review next year.
Well, on the first issue, we're not planning job cuts here at the base. The Strategic Defence and Security Review takes place next year, so it's not underway at the moment. It's something that's going to begin in the summer next year. Obviously, we're doing a lot of thinking about it, but I'm certainly not planning job cuts here at the base.
This includes the Royal Gibraltar Regiment, who will be the subject of legislation in the next few weeks to put them on the same footing as the rest of the British Army.
I would simply highlight again the strategic importance of Gibraltar in the context of current and future security challenges, and I would emphasise that our commitment here is for the long term. It is expressed not just in fine words, but in significant investment, which will flow from the agreements that are being signalled to you this morning, and an enduring partnership as well.
There's no commitment on increased resources for the Royal Navy to deal with Spanish state incursions into Gibraltar waters. The Defence Secretary repeated the regular Foreign Office line that incursions are a violation of sovereignty, not a threat to it. However, Mr Fallon and Mr Picardo have discussed the issue, and the Chief Minister has expressed the view that there would be some value to having an increased deterrent in the Bay. The Defence Secretary said he was concerned at the increase in incursions, as well as the escalation in their seriousness, and was kept brief on the situation by command.
Diplomatic action has to pursue those incursions. I think it is appropriate, though, and I have said this before, that the United Kingdom might wish to consider asserting its sovereignty of the waters by the presence of a bigger vessel at the appropriate time. The Defence Secretary and I have discussed that. And it's an issue which is constantly under review, as I understand it, by the United Kingdom Defence and Foreign Office authorities. I am satisfied that if the time comes when that is necessary, it will happen. I am also satisfied that it is very much on the agenda on a day-to-day basis as we see these reckless incursions continue.
These incursions do not weaken sovereignty. They may violate sovereignty, but they don't weaken or undermine it. So, that is the first point. Secondly, I am satisfied that the squadron and the police here have the resources that they need to patrol the waters. I am concerned at the increase in the number of these incursions and what appears to be the growing seriousness of these incursions. I continue to take advice from the commander here about both the the number of personnel that are required to man the squadron and the equipment that they need.
The MOD will soon be inviting tender applications for the resurfacing of the runway at the Gibraltar airport for the first time in 20 years. It's agreed with the government, however, to share the cost in future, given it's used as a commercial airport as well. The two parties expressed a joint commitment to transfer the Defence Fire and Rescue Services to the government at the earliest opportunity. Mr. Fallon's diary, whilst in Gibraltar, also included sailing out to sea with Gib Squadron, as well as meetings with the Governor and Commander British Forces.
The news of the MOD lands transfer and other measures announced to the Defence Secretary was delivered to Parliament by the Chief Minister shortly after his meeting with Mr. Fallon. In an immediate reaction, the leader of the opposition said anything which benefited the economy of Gibraltar was most welcome and would enjoy the support of his side of the House. For its part, Unite the Union says it's very pleased with the announcement and, in particular, is glad to hear that the transfer of the Defence Fire Service will be happening after a 7-year wait. The union says this has been a difficult year for MOD workers and says this will be well received by Unite members. The government estimates that the new power station will be ready and fully commissioned by late 2016, early 2017. This was confirmed in Parliament by the Chief Minister Fabian Picardo, who said the contractor will take possession of the site on the 1st of July next year. In a likely parliamentary record, a total of 50 questions were grouped and answered together on this issue, all but 3 of them tabled by Shadow Environment Minister Jaime Neto. The Chief Minister said he expects the reclamation works associated with the power station to be carried out in 2 phases and be completed by April next year. 6 engines will be gas only and 3 will run on diesel as backup. The engines are already in production. The new power station will require the construction of 2 distribution centres, one at mid-harbours and the other adjacent to Waterport Power Station. Gas will be transported to Gibraltar by sea, and there are no plans to have a pipeline from Spain or North Africa. In answers to other questions, the Chief Minister said no official taking part in ad hoc talks with the UK and Spain was empowered to make any concessions of any kind. The leader of the opposition had asked whether Gibraltar would have a separate voice, vote and veto. Mr. Picardo said there would be a separate voice, but no veto or vote, as everything had to be agreed by all 3 governments, and it was up to officials discussing matters to report back for political decisions to be made. He said his government was not in the business of making concessions to anyone. Mr. Picardo also said no decisions had yet been made about the post of Director of Public Prosecutions, separate to that of Attorney General. He said the post of AG had been advertised locally and in the UK, and a final decision had not been taken. The Victoria Stadium could only be upgraded to a Category 3 stadium to the detriment of other sports. This according to Sports Minister Steven Linares, who categorically told the opposition leader that he was not willing to revise the policy of not upgrading the stadium to this level, even if the opposition could demonstrate this was possible with no disruption to other sports. The subject of the Victoria Stadium upgrade arose in answer to questions in Parliament.
Steven Linares said he was the Minister for Sport and not the Minister for Football. He told the House the government's intention had always been to upgrade the Victoria Stadium to a Category 2, Category 3 compliant in parts, stadium. These changes, he said, would mean that although full international matches may not be played there, many other competitions could take place. Mr. Linares added that for the stadium to be classified a Cat 3, it requires parking spaces for 50 cars for VIPs and a stadium capacity of 4,500. UEFA requirements, he said, were unacceptable, as they deprived the stadium from being used as a multi-sports complex. The opposition asked whether the government would revisit its policy if it could demonstrate that it could be done without depriving other sports. Mr. Linares replied no. There was also a resounding no to the question of whether the government was then supporting a new stadium at Europa Point and wanted the community to think there was no alternative. But the opposition spokesman for sport, Edwin Reyes, pointed out the Cricket Association would be left without a pitch if this went ahead, with the government confirming that cricket will be given an alternative site and a new pitch.
Gibraltar's preparedness against the Ebola virus was also discussed in Parliament. The Health Minister, Dr. John Cortes, highlighted the measures in place, including isolation procedures, and confirmed a simulation exercise to ensure readiness would be held in the next few weeks. The 3 convicted macaques brothers were back in court this week, appealing the findings of Gibraltar's longest and most expensive ever criminal trial. The submissions have focused on trial judge Sir Geoffrey Grigson's decision in October last year to discharge the jury and hear the brothers' case himself.
In July, Benjamin, Isaac and Solomon Marache were convicted of conspiracy to defraud millions of pounds. They received lengthy prison sentences. This week, top UK Queen's Counsel appeared on their behalf to make submissions to the Court of Appeal, attempting to get the brothers' convictions overturned or perhaps their sentences reduced. Appearing on behalf of Solomon Marache, Anthony Arledge QC made a case for the importance of trial by jury, a right, he said, that shouldn't have been taken away. John Cooper QC addressed the court on behalf of Isaac Marache and submitted that jury tampering hadn't taken place, but in any case, when Sir Geoffrey decided that it had, he didn't have to dismiss the whole jury. Dorian Lovell-Pank QC appeared for Benjamin Marache and highlighted the fact that a judge is only supposed to hear the trial himself without a new jury if and only if he's satisfied the situation cannot be remedied by any other resort. The QC said the situation was nowhere near that point. Mr Lovell-Pank also said the mood in Gibraltar tends to be anti this case because of the cost to the taxpayer, some £6 million so far. But he pleaded with the Court of Appeal that whatever decision it reaches at the end of this hearing, it should leave no doubt in people's minds that the length and cost of proceedings have borne no influence. There were tense moments at the end of the hearing as Benjamin Marache's lawyer said there'd been interference with the funding of his client's defence. He alleged there'd been an email exchange between the Chief Justice, Anthony Dudley, and the Minister for Justice, Gilbert Ligudi, on the subject, and that he's already filed a formal complaint. Many family members gathered in court this week to see the Marache brothers, temporarily at least, outside prison walls and back in their business suits. The Court of Appeal's Sir George Waller, Sir Mark Potter and its President Sir Paul Kennedy will now give all arguments their full consideration before returning a written ruling. How quickly that process happens is anyone's guess.
Well, this week the macaques made their 12-hour trip to Scotland. A group of 30 Barbary macaques were loaded onto a chartered plane to Gatwick Airport. The monkeys were partially sedated and were looked after by their keepers, with the aim to ensure they weren't distressed in any way. The monkeys arrived at the Safari and Adventure Park in Scotland to spend a few weeks in quarantine. Their home will now include a heated house and a 2.5-acre enclosure with a swimming pool. The Herald Scotland newspaper quoted the head of the park's macaque section as saying they seem to have settled in very well. Gibraltar saw a remarkable feat of daring as the world's oldest wing walker took to the skies to circle the rock. The stunt was carried out as part of a charity campaign inspired by teenage cancer victim Stephen Sutton, and also saw the wing-walking debut of Miss Gibraltar Cheyenne Sopardi. 94-year-old grandfather Tom Lackey is the world's oldest wing walker, as well as holding several other records. At the age of 86, he became the oldest man to loop the loop on the wing of an aircraft, and last year he wing-walked from Dover to Calais and back. He first carried out a wing walk in memory of his wife, whose picture he always carries, and he's already raised more than £1 million for charity.
She'd kill me if she knew what I was doing, but I think she'd be quite proud now, but she's been up every time I do a wing walk with Mike. I've always had his photograph in my pocket next to my heart, you know. So I always think that she's always there. If she's there, I've got to do it. But I know she would. She would never give up. She's my inspiration still.
This weekend's stunt was carried out on board a plane flown by pilot Mike Dentith on his first trip to Gibraltar. Tom Lackey may have completed plenty of wing walks over the years, but it was the wing-walking debut for Miss Gibraltar.
And I thought, why not? It's once in a lifetime that I'll be approached to do something like this. So I said yes.
Cheyenne Asopardi also recently completed a skydive to raise funds for the Gibraltar Alzheimer's and Dementia Society. Of her wing walk, she said not many at the Miss World pageant will be able to say they've done something like this before.